The man standing at the front of that classroom had failed every single exam the school system asked him to pass. He failed mathematics 3 times. He failed his final school exams twice. He dropped out at 17. He left school with nothing on paper. And then at 27 he opened a school. Not a big school. Not a famous school. A school built entirely around the belief that every child who is struggling in the current system is not failing. The system is failing them. Failing a system that was not designed for you is not failure. It is information. Samir had not always been unreachable. When he was young, he was curious about everything. He asked questions that went sideways of the lesson, not to disrupt but because his mind made unexpected connections that the curriculum had no room for. By the time he was 12, the education system had decided what Samir was: difficult, inattentive, behind. The labels arrived early and traveled with him, from classroom to classroom like a file that arrived before he did. He was not behind in the way they meant. His mind moved fast, just not along the tracks that exams required. He thought in stories and examples and physical things he could touch and build. Samir, I do not understand. You are not a stupid boy. Why can you not just? I know, Baba. I do not understand it either. A child who cannot learn the way you teach is not broken. They are waiting for a teacher who can teach the way they learn. After his second failure of the final exams, the head teacher called Samir in for a conversation that was really a conclusion. Samir, I think we have to be honest with each other. This school has given you every opportunity we have. Perhaps it is time to consider something more practical. Something more practical. He walked out of that office and down the corridor, and out of the school gate. And he did not go back. Not because he gave up on learning. Because that particular building had run out of ways to reach him. What nobody noticed in that moment, what nobody asked about, was what Samir did with the next 3 years. The story did not end. It changed direction. Dropping out of a system that could not reach you is not the end of your education. Sometimes it is the beginning of a real one. After leaving school, Samir worked. Kitchen porter, delivery driver, construction site laborer. He was not drifting. He was watching. Every job taught him something a classroom never had. How systems worked. How people made decisions under pressure. How problems got solved when there was no textbook to consult. At 19 he started reading. Not school books. Books about how people learn. About why some children disappear from classrooms while others thrive. At 20 he started volunteering. He sat with a 10-year-old who could not understand fractions. Samir tried something different. He used money. Coins. Physical objects. The child understood in 7 minutes. What 6 weeks of classroom instruction had not delivered. Oh, why did nobody show me it like that? Why did nobody show me it like that? Samir sat with those words for a long time. Because he knew the answer. And the answer made him certain of something. The child who cannot learn from the explanation is not the problem. The explanation is the problem. At 22, Samir decided to open a school. Everyone around him had a version of the same reaction. You dropped out of school, Samir. You cannot open one. You need qualifications. Teaching certificates. Buildings. Money. Are you sure this is realistic for someone in your position? He listened to each one. Nodded. Went home. Opened his notebook. Kept writing. He had heard all the versions of you cannot before. He had heard them from a school system that had been wrong about him for 7 years. He was comfortable with being underestimated. It had always been his most useful operating condition. He spent 2 years planning. Got qualifications through night classes. Applied for a grant. Rejected. Applied again. Rejected again. Applied a 3rd time with better evidence. Got it. The person who failed every exam is often the most qualified to understand why children fail. Let that be your credential. The school opened on a Monday morning in September with 12 children. Every single one of them had been told, in different words by different people, that they were the problem. I want to tell you something before we start. I failed every exam the system asked me to pass. I dropped out of school at 17 with nothing on paper. And I need you to know that, because I need you to understand That nothing about where you have been tells you anything about where you are going. Nothing. You are here because you learn differently. And I'm going to find out how. And then I'm going to teach you in that way. That is my promise to you. Within 1 year, 6 of the 12 children had caught up to grade level. Within 2 years, 3 of them were ahead. Within 3 years, Samir's school had a waiting list. Your greatest failure can become your greatest qualification. If you choose to go back and fix the thing that broke you. I want to talk to you about failing. Not the kind where you did not try hard enough. The kind where you tried everything you had and it still did not work. That verdict was not about you. It was about the match between who you are and what the system was built for. And you, the real you, the way your mind actually works, may never have been what that system was built for. That is not your failure. That is a mismatch. And mismatches can be fixed. The years I spent failing taught me more about learning than any qualification ever could. They made me obsessively curious about why children struggle. They gave me a map of exactly where the system breaks down. And that map, built from my own failures, is what this school runs on. Whatever the system told you about yourself, that paper is not the measure of your mind. It is the measure of the match between your mind and the test. And the test was built for someone else. A system, an exam, fail the test. That told you something about yourself that you are still carrying. That is the real curriculum. Tell me what it said about you. And then tell me what you know now that it was wrong about. Share this with a child who is struggling right now. Or a parent watching their child struggle and not knowing what to say. Send them this. Let them know that struggling in the current system is not the end of the story. It might be the beginning of a better one. Subscribe to Rise Tales for a new story every week. Because the children who struggle most in school often have the most extraordinary things to teach the rest of us. This is Rise Tales. Real lessons. Animated lives. And your story? It starts right now.